Okay, we're ready to start. Start chapter 77. We're going to do like we usually do, go through it once with a basic translation, and then a second time with a better understanding, hopefully. So, chapter 77, Kapitel Ayin Zayin, Pasuk Aleph, verse number 1. Lam Natseach for the conductor, Al Yedusun. So what's Yedusun? We'll talk about it. There's different ways that we can explain Yedusun, and the Asaf to Asaf Mizmar, a psalm, a Mizmar. Koili el Elikim ve'etzaka. My voice goes out to Hashem ve'etzaka, and I cry out and I scream. It's a scream. Koili el Elikim. My voice to Hashem, va'azin eloi, and listen to me. B'yoyim tzarasi, on the day of my suffering. So this is actually a key, I think, to the whole chapter, is the beginning of Pasuk Gimel, B'yoyim tzarasi, on the day of my suffering, on the day of my tzara. Hashem derashti yadi, so I cry out to Hashem yadi. So yadi is not taken. No, I didn't see any commentary take the word yadi, yad over here, literal to be hand, talking about a wound. Laila, by night, nigra. It's the wound oozes during the night, and I can't, and I have no place for my soul. I can't find any respite for my soul. Pasuk Dalid, I remember Hashem ve'emaya, and I moan. I give a krechts, right? This is one of the words that in Yiddish that you can't really translate. Krechts means a moan, but it means a lot more than a moan. A krechts, right? Asicha, I speak v'sisate v'ruchi sela, and my ruach, my spirit, it isate, like it goes, it disappears, it faints, it goes to sleep, it goes away. Pasuk hey, Yachaz l'shmoris einai, you grab hold of my eyelids, nifamti v'lo yadaber, and I'm broken and I cannot speak. Chishavti yam mikedem, I think about the good old days, yam mikedem, the days of kedem, of old, shnei seilamim, the days, the ancient, the years from elamim, from worlds before. Number 7 is I remember the song or the music during the night, with my heart. I speak, so it means like it's a meditation of the heart. And I am looking for, what am I looking for? I'm looking for my spirit, my ruach. Number 8, Hashem, will Hashem forsaken forever? Then Hashem, could it be possible? There's no question marks or punctuation really, but there's supposed to be a question mark at the end of this pasuk, that Hashem doesn't want, or is not looking to be appeased anymore. Hey, Afes lanetzach chazdai. Number 9, did his kindness, chazdai, did his kindness, hey Afes, did it disappear forever? Lanetzach, forever. Gamar aimer leder v'der, and as he sealed the decree for ever, for the or rendered judgment for future generations, etc. And that's it. Number 10, Ashach Chanais Kel, did Hashem forget Chanois, which is mercy, and Kafatz Ba'af Rachmov Sela, and did his anger get restrained? Did his anger hold back compassion, Sela, forever? Number 11, and then I say, who's this I say? The psalmist says, this is a chalais, this is a switch. It's a switch. A switch. And shnois yamin elyain, and the years, shnois is a change, yamin elyain, of the right, the right hand above. Number 12. Don't worry, the second round will be a little bit more understandable. A few beautiful things that, besides a better understanding of the actual chapter, there's a few beautiful things that we have that I'm going to share on this chapter. Esker Malei Ka, I'll remember the actions, Ma'alale, the actions of Hashem, Yudke, right? Ki Ezkira Mikedem Pilecha, that I remember the Pella. Pella is there's different words in Hebrew that we use for wonders, for miracles. There's Nisim, Nifla'is. Nifla'is comes from the word Pella, and that's the word over here. Ki Ezkira, that I remember the original, the old, the wonders, the miracles of bygone days. And I think about, I meditate on all your actions, and I speak of your actions, of your deeds. Pasuk 14. Hashem, your process, your way is b'kodesh, in holiness, in sanctity. Mi kel gadol kelikim, who is like God, who is as great as Hashem, as Elohim. Ata kel oisipela, you are the God, you are Hashem that does wonders. And the nations know your strength. You're known in the nations by your strength. Go out of Israel Amecha, you redeemed by your strength your nation. Bnei Yaakov v'Yosef Selah, the children of Yaakov and Yosef, Selah. Yaakov and Yosef, mentioning specifically Yaakov and Yosef over here is also something that we'll talk about soon. Yaakov and Yosef. Okay. Number 17. Hashem, you saw waters, you saw the waters tremble, and even the Tehillim is the depth, the deep waters, you've seen them tremble as well. Number 18, the clouds rained water, and the heavens sent forth, made noises, gave noises, and your arrows or your spears flew by. Number 19, the sound of Hashem's thunder and the rolling wind that comes with it, and the lightning that comes with it, lit up the world. Brakim Tevel, Brakim, the lightning lit up what? Tevel, the whole world. And the earth trembled and quaked. In the Hashem's way is through the sea, through the many waters, and then the path gets disappeared and you don't know it anymore. You've led Nachisa. Actually, you're going to have a beautiful medrash of what Nachisa, different ideas of what Nachisa means. There's a beautiful medrash that gives you 3 opinions of Nachisa in each one, Rashi Tevis, that each letter represents another idea of the way Moshe and Aaron led the Jewish people. But Bechlal, this pasuk there's a lot to talk about. The final pasuk, we'll get to it eventually today. But Hashem, Moshe, that you led your people. Hashem has led the people. How? In the hands of Moshe and Aaron. Okay, so if this capital makes any sense, we could stop here, but I needed a lot of work on this capital. I spent on Shabbos a few hours, and then preparing, and then I spent a few hours this morning also preparing this chapter. There's a lot to talk about here in this capital, a lot to further understand, and some of it maybe we won't understand fully, and that's okay too. So, first of all, what's going on over here in this chapter? So I'm debating if I should give away the answer at the beginning or at the end. But first of all, most of the Mefarshim, most of the commentaries on this chapter, they say that this is referring to hardships that the Jewish people go through out exile, right? At least the beginning of it is very clear that it's talking about Yom Tzara. It's talking about a day of hardship, a time of hardship, when someone's a time of hardship. And this is a typical hardship or a day of hardship that that a Yid goes through, and in a day of galus, in a day of exile, and he cries out to Hashem, right? So it starts off with the hardships and crying out to Hashem, but ultimately, there's two things over here. There's a step here in the chapter where a person recognizes that it comes that sometimes these hardships come about because I need to do tshuva, I need to return to a good path, I need to return to Hashem. That's one thing. And then there's another thing about the remembering and the talking and the discussing, which is the most of the second half of the chapter, of previous miracles that Hashem has done for the Jewish people, which we'll get to step by step throughout that. What's the point of the chapter? What are we trying to say? What are we trying to get to? So I think that if I tell you now what we're trying to get to throughout this chapter, at least one of the opinions, one of the ideas that we're trying to get to through this chapter, it might be easier to process through and to go through what's going on here in this in this chapter. Okay, so I alluded to it in the email that we sent out, that the person goes through a hardship. So what should he think about? What should he meditate about? And how it and something that he thinks about or meditates about will help him get through get through the hardship that he's going through. So now Pasuk 3 talks about hardship, but then eventually, at least when we get to Pasuk 11, it says that a person recognizes, and we'll get to it in more detail as we go along, we just want to give you an overview, a person recognizes that it all comes from above and there's a reason for it. So maybe a reminder, a person should look towards Hashem, a person should do tshuva, return to Hashem, etc., etc. And then the psukim continue, and the psukim start talking about and discuss all the previous things that Hashem has done. And the Rebbe looks at this pasuk, looks at this chapter, and the Rebbe says that this is a process that a person should use when he's going through a hard time. Person goes beyond tzara, when a person goes through a hard time, so first of all, they should recognize that maybe there's something in their life that they need fixing. There's something that they need to get closer to Hashem about. There's a mitzvah waiting there that needs to be done. There is a Torah class that's waiting there for you to show up to, right? That there's opportunities that Hashem wants to remind you. Hold on a second, I exist. I'm here, and you should show up. There's a mitzvah that needs to be done, there's a davening that needs to be done, or there's a Torah learning that needs to be done, or there's a transgression that maybe we should stay away from. So these are different reminders that Yom Tzara could remind us about. So that's number one. Now, a person might think, hold on a second, but I'm in such a deep tzara, I'm in such a deep hole, for lack of a better way to put it, right? I'm in such a deep place, I'm in such a far away place, that how am I going to get out of this? Comes the next psukim, starting with Pasuk 12, and tells you, don't worry, Hashem has done great miracles. Hashem has done bigger miracles than you can imagine. Hashem has done miracles that start off, if you look at the psukim, we'll get to it soon, but it starts off with just regular miracles, ploys, pella. It starts off with regular miracles, and then he goes from simple miracles to the miracle of taking the Jewish people out of Egypt. Imagine taking a nation of slaves and making them free people. It's a big miracle. And then, not only that, to do a miracle that goes against the laws of nature, which is the splitting of the sea. And this is the process of the different psukim that is going on over here. And the Rebbe says that this is what's going on in this chapter, that the person should meditate on these things, should think that a person might feel down and feel low and say, no, hold on a second, think about the miracles that Hashem has done in the past. Think about how Hashem has done things for the Jewish people in the past, and surely Hashem will do that. The Rebbe says, actually, that through meditating in such a level, not only will a person be okay, so Hashem will come and save the person. Hashem will come and give the person koach. No, he actually takes himself out of a situation of galus and puts himself into a situation of gula. He takes himself out of a situation of exile, of a mentality of exile, of a reality of exile, and puts himself into a reality of redemption, and puts himself into a reality of geula. That's the accomplishment that a person could have if it could accomplish for himself, to put himself into a reality of gula. And if he gets a gula pratis, right, if he puts himself into reality personally, into a reality of gula, of redemption, so through that, well, how's he going to do it? Through the Torah learning, through the mitzvahs, etc., etc. So once a person does that, a person will also be able to effect change in the world, that in the world out there in general, people should have that, it should have redemption. People should have gula, not just for him, not just gula pratis, not just personal gula, but a general gula for the whole world. So that's a form of an introduction to the kapitel, but it will give you a framework to use when we go through the kapitel, at least from a mystical from a side level of learning, but we're also going to try to understand that also from a level of pshat. Okay, let's start over. Pasuk Aleph, Lav Natech Al Yedusun Nosaf Mizmar, for the conductor. So Yedusun, Tzudis says, actually Tzudis brings two opinions, but very often when there's an introduction, when there's a word like that in the beginning, he says that it's referring, like Shoshana, different words that are at the beginning of a chapter of Tehillim, that it's a certain type of instrument that was used. So here too, the Tzudis comes and tells us that Yedutun is a type of musical instrument. Now, what else could Yedusun mean? So Rashi comes and tells us that Yedusun is referring to das. Das is law, is decree, is law that comes from the king. If you know the Megillah, if you know the words in the Megillah, in Hebrew at least, so there's a famous statement that after the decree it says "V'hadas nitna b'Shushan Abira." And the decree, the law was set down. The decree was set forth in Shushan, right? When Haman convinced Achashverosh to make a decree against the Jewish people, so Vadas Nitna, the das was given. So Rashi over here says that Al Yedusun, that it's referring to das, the decrees, that the judgments and decrees that the Jewish people will go through during exile. Lam Natseach, this is a psalm, this is for the conductor, Al Yedusun, about and for the decrees and judgment that the Jewish people will suffer in exile. So that's the way Rashi explains this, and there's quite a few others that quote similar to Rashi, that Yedusun from Lashon Dasudin, decrees and judgment. Interesting though, if we're talking about decrees and judgment, Lam Natzeach Al Yedusun, La'asaf Mizmar. Still, Asaf, what does he call it? A Mizmar, a song, right? He sings it. Even the troubles he sings, and the Mamleis mentions it, mentions it specifically and says the reason why we sing when it comes even to troubles is because ultimately we know that it's hamtakas adinim. This is to sweeten the negativity that needs to be fixed. That's why we go through these types of troubles in our lifetime. It's to fix the stains that we have to fix, and therefore he's even happy about it. He sings about it. Mizmor, it's a pasuk beis, pasuk kaili elakim. So it's mentioned twice over here. Kaili elakim v'atzaka and kaili elakim v'azin elai. That my voice cries out to Hashem. So the Radak says it's mentioned twice because he wants to emphasize that it's only kaili elakim. Says it twice, Kaili Elikim, right? Kaili, my voice when I'm looking for help, when I'm looking to cry out to someone, it's only Elikim, it's only to Hashem, and therefore he mentions it twice over here. And he ends off the Hazin Eloi, which ends off that Hashem will listen to me. Why? He's sure that Hashem will listen to me because I'm only going to cry out to Hashem. I don't rely on anybody else. I rely only on Hashem. So the Hazin Eloi, Hashem will definitely listen to me. Pasuk Gimel, pasuk number 3. So B'yom Tzarasi, on the day of my troubles. So B'yom tzarasi Hashem, on the day of my troubles, I cry out to Hashem. Deroshti, I cry out to Hashem, and Yadi, my hand. So here in the translation that I have, he says, "My Yadi, my wound," and it's based on Rashi and many other commentaries that say also here that Yadi is referring to a wound, and the Laila that it mentions, the nighttime that it mentions over here in this pasuk, is referring to Galus, nighttime, Galus, long exile, a long night, a long Galus, long exile. But the Radak says that even though I tell myself words of consolation, I try to calm myself down, that Hashem will take us out of Galus, etc., etc. I tell myself that, I try to console myself, and even though Galus is long, I try to console myself, but Me'ana hinachem nafshi, the pasuk ends off that my soul, my nefesh, doesn't find solace, is not consoled with all these things. It's looking for a solution to it, not looking to be consoled. Svarnu says that the soul doesn't get consoled because there's no real end date. If someone tells you, not you, Chas v'shalom, nobody over here should ever suffer, but someone that's suffering, and he goes to the doctor says, yeah, I know exactly what this is. It's going to take exactly a day and a half, and after a day and a half, you're going to be fine. Or even if it tells you a week, right? After a week, you're going to be fine. Right, so you'll be okay, right? It won't be easy, but at least you're counting down, right? Now kids are finishing school, right? Right, they're counting down. Bar mitzvah boys that I taught last week, how many days left? They're counting how many days left. Even my boys, they're looking forward. They're coming home the end of the week. How many days they have left until they're finished this part of the school year, and then they go back for summer. But still, it's a countdown, right? So Chas v'shalom, not that school is suffering. It shouldn't be suffering, and it should be something that everybody looks forward to. So it's really, 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 really a bad example. But nonetheless, when there's something that something's coming to an end, it's easy to get through it when you're going through a difficult time. Here, when it comes to Galus, there's no end in sight. There's nothing telling you. There's no end, and therefore it's hard. And that's the way the Sfarnu explains the end of Pasuk Gimel, that Me'ana hinachem nafshi, that my soul can't find solace, right? Is not consoled.
Started 8 o'clock.
For weeks already. We started 7:30. Remember for David.
What is it saying in the thing you sent out?
Pasuk Dalet. Pasuk number 4. So Ezkira, I remember the good times, right? Ezkira, Kim, V'Maya. Remember, I used the word krechts over here. It's a good Yiddish word for Amaya, for moaning, right? For the word moaning, but that's really in Yiddish. Krechts is a good word. So Rashi says, I remember the good times when you showed us with kindness, and I speak about them. Ezkira Kim, that about what? I remember the kindness that you have given us in the past, and I speak about them as Asicha, I speak about them. Svarnu says that I remember when Hashem used to fight my battles, Ezkir Elikim V'Maya. I remember the times when I didn't have to fight my battles, and I moan, asking why Hashem has left us alone to suffer. Why are we suffering? So again, as we mentioned, this is according to most commentaries talking about the time going throughout Golus, the sufferings the Jewish people go throughout Golus. Pasuk Hey, Pasuk number 5. Chaz Tashmuris Einai. So my eyes, right? From all the Metzudah says, from all the suffering, I can't even sleep. I can't close my eyes. Chaz Tashmuris Einai. My eyes can't close. I am broken to the extent that I can't even speak. That's the Metzudah explains the pasuk, and the Radak says I'm broken from a lack of sleep, and therefore I can't speak. The Sfarnu says I don't speak in order not to scare everybody. If I tell everybody, the psalmist is saying, if I tell everybody what's really happening, right, the real sufferings that are going on in Golus, so it's interesting. The Sfarnu takes it a little bit different. Some say that because of the suffering I can't speak. Some say I don't want to talk about the suffering; it will scare everybody. The Alshich says that the Alshich has I'm not gonna, it's the only time I'm going to bring up the Alshich. The Alshich had his own approach to this whole chapter, that the person is not bemoaning, it's not krechtzing about his own galus, he's krechtzing, he's bemoaning Hashem being in Galus, right? Because if we're in Galus, that means Hashem is in Galus. So that's what he's bemoaning. So over here he says that when it says V'lo yadaber, I'm not talking about myself. I don't care for myself. I care that the Shechina, that the divine presence is in Galus, and that's what I care about. And that's the Al-Sheikh's general approach to this whole chapter. But we're not going to bring it up every pasuk the way he explains it. The Mamleis brings down that it's a remez that during Golus, going through such a hard time, it's hard to learn Torah, right? And so lo yadaber, I don't even have time to speak in words of Torah because of the hardships that we're going through, and that's meaning putting it on Hashem, so to speak. Say lemancha, as we say on Rosh Hashanah and Kippur, right, and other times as well. That do it for your own sake. What does it mean? Do it for your own sake, because during Galus we can't sit and learn Torah like we would be able to when we will be able to when Mashiach comes. So do it for the sake of us being able to study Torah more, etc., and be able to speak in words of Torah even more than what we are doing now. Pasuk Vav, Pasuk 6. Hishavti Yamim Yikedem Shnei Selamim. Think about the good old days. So Rashi says that it's remembering the kindness that Hashem has done for our forefathers, Laviseinu, for our forefathers. And the Metzudah says it's more personal, remembering kindnesses that Hashem has done for me specifically. So whichever way you can learn this pasuk, either on a general level, global level, or on a personal level. Pasuk Zayin. Rashi says that during what's he saying? That Ezra Niginasi, I remember the songs. Which songs is he talking about? He's talking about the songs that were sung in the Beis HaMikdash, right? The songs that were sung in the Beis HaMikdash. That's what I yearn for. During Galus, I yearn for the songs that were sung in the Beis HaMikdash, and my heart and my spirit search, right? The Levavi, by Chapis, and I'm looking, Ruchi, I'm looking to try to figure out what's Hashem's plan over here. That we had it so good over here. What's Hashem's plan over here? We had so good with during Beis Hamikdash. What's Hashem's plan? I'm trying to figure out what's Hashem's plan with Galus, with the suffering the Jewish people are going through. And so, as you remember with my introduction, this pasuk actually fits in very well with the whole process. Looking up, figuring out that it's tshuva, etc. The Sfarno says that this is like a moment of reflection. Person, even when he goes through troubles, I've seen it. I've seen Chassidim do this. Sometimes you're going through a hard time, sit down, sing again, Hamatun. Put yourself into a different mind frame, into a different mindset, put your head into another place. Don't think. We said before, right? Don't think about. Right? Don't think about the pain. The pain, it's gonna be there, right? It's gonna be there. Okay, put your mind on something else. The more you think about it, the more you're gonna feel it, right? The less you think about it, it's not gonna disappear, but you'll feel it less. So this goes on a personal level, but it also goes on a global level. Look at this, the capitals talking straight. Same thing. Pasuk Ches, Pasuk 8. As I mentioned when we did it on the first one, these psukim, the next two psukim, 8 and 9, should definitely be with a question mark at the end of the pasuk. Metzudah says a simple pshat that we're asking, would Hashem not be appeased like the good old days? You do a mitzvah, Hashem would be appeased, meaning that Hashem would recognize a mitzvah and therefore repay us, so to speak, for a mitzvah. It's interesting because the Mamlois, which we're going to get to in a moment, he says the pasuk 9 and 10 are giving 4 reasons to say that Hashem did not forget. It's not pasuk 8 is asking Hashem. Obviously not. The answer is obviously no. Can't stay by the question. It's actually against halacha. When you learn Torah, you can't stay by a question. Right? When you have a question, you have to answer the question. You can't stay by a question. So what is Hashem? Is Hashem just going to forget us forever? No, chas v'shalom. Obviously not. It's a rhetorical question, right? No. How do we know this? So the Mamlei says in pasuk Tes and Yud 9 and 10, he gives 4 reasons how we know this, which we're going to get to in a moment. But let's start with pasuk 9 first, Shat, and then we'll go to the Mamleis. Pasuk 9, Hey Afis Lanetzach Chazdoi. So Rashi says Obviously, that's a chazay. This kindness finish, right? This kindness finish. Gomar Omer L'Der V'Der, did his will he never come back from his anger? Is it possible such a thing by Hashem? It's impossible, right? This is the way Rashi explains it. Svarnu says, just because Hashem is treating someone with judgment, for whatever reason, is it impossible for Hashem to treat him with mercy too at the same time, right? And even someone that judgment was already rendered, right? Gomar, it's finished already. The judgment was rendered. L'derva, there is it going to be forever? As far as learns this possible. So, and I mentioned this. So the Imam Loya says that, similar to what Rashi says, that the previous pasuk 8 said, "Will Hashem forget us forever?" So no, why? As Rashi said, that Hashem's kindness doesn't finish. There's no end, and he gives he says like a human being. Let's say you have a wealthy uncle. He always bails you out. No matter what you need. But at some point, if the money is finished, the money is finished. As much as he would want to bail you out, he can't bail you out, right? But could you say that about Hashem? I can't say that about Hashem. Hashem's kindness ever stopped. Right, Philip, remember the grace of Balabas, right? There's no end in that. Oh, how do we access it? How do we get to it? That's a different story. But to say that that Hashem is done, there's no more kindness. Chas v'shalom. There's no such a thing, right? That's number one that the memory is the first half of pasuk 9. The second pasuk Gomer Aimer. So number 2 is the. Are we going to say that Gomar, that it was finished because it was only for a certain time? That there's only a certain time that Hashem was going to treat people with kindness and then it's done? No. Does it say that there was an end date, that there was a generational thing? It's a derv that it only goes for certain days, it's only for certain generations? Obviously not. So here's 2 things saying that Allah is pasuk 8 asking, will Hashem forsake us forever? Absolutely not. Hashem's kindness is not gone. It's not something that was only for certain generations and not for others. And then he continues in pasuk Yud and pasuk 10. Hashachach hanais kel. That number 3, right? Can Hashem forget mercy? Hashachach chanois. Can Hashem forget? From the word shechech. Can Hashem forget chanois, to be merciful? Hashem forgetting. So the Medrash continues over there and says, don't we say that by Hashem there's no such a thing as forgetting? Hashem never forgets, right? And number 4, did he put away the anger, right? Did he lock up did he lock himself up and only show anger? It's not Hashem's way. Hashem doesn't show. There's a psukim that talk about Hashem's anger. It's for a generation or 2, but to say that that's the process that Hashem is going to take, obviously not. And this is the 4 answers, the way the Medrash, the way the Mamla is answers pasuk 8. Pasuk 8 is answered by pasuk 9 and 10 with 4 answers. Pasuk Aleph, pasuk 11. So now, Va'imar, and I say, so until now, what did we talk about? The tzaras that a person is going through throughout galus, throughout exile. So now the psalmist, or the person that's the personal person that's dealing with this situation, the tzara, the pain, right? Va'imar, and the person says, Chalaisihi. It's something that's trying to scare me. Right, trying to scare me, and shnois yimin elyon, and it's a switch shot from the word shino, from the changing, right? It's a change from the right above. What does that mean? So Rashi says, my mind tells me this is only to scare me. Va'imar, and my mind tells me that what? It's only to scare me. The right hand changes and turns back. It's only there to scare me. What is it there to scare me? Mitzvah continues. All of this is in order to bring someone to do tshuva for their transgressions, for the things that they missed out, the opportunities that they missed out. It's all there only to awaken a person to do tshuva. Svarnu says that the right from above, he ends off like with the end of the pasuk. Shnois Yamin Elyon, that the Yamin Elyon, what's the Yamin Elyon? What's the right, the supernal right side? Chesed, right? If you think about the diagram of Chesed, Gvura, Tveres, right? Chesed is on the right side, top right side. So Yamin Elyon, the supernal right side, which is Chesed, it got switched to what? Gvura, severity. That's the switch over here. Shnois, the changing of Yamin Elyon, of the supernal right side, gets turned over to the left side. Obviously, we always want to receive from the right side, as long as you're receiving from a righty. Right? You want it the right side. The right side represents the idea of chesed, of kindness. Mamlaya says that the previous psukim we said that troubles that come from Hashem can't be forever. So if they're prolonged, what is it? It's because I need an extra reminder. That's the way this Mamlay learns over here. Pasuk 12, Ezker. Now he goes through, remember in the introduction we talked about that this is a process of remembering all the different things that Hashem has done, and not all the different things, very specific things actually, that Hashem has done for the Jewish people, starting with going out of Egypt, etc. So different miracles that Hashem has done. So Ezker, I will remember. So in the Tehillim that you have, I don't know if you have Kriying Siv. Kriying Siv is that, sometimes in the Torah, and also in Nevi'im and Ksuvim, sometimes a word is written one way, right, but read another way. So if you're reading from the Torah, Parsha from the Torah, you have to be very careful. You have to know Kriying Siv, because in the Torah it's going to be written in a way, and you actually have to pronounce it another way. So that's why you have a congregation that makes sure that you don't ever make a mistake, and they scream it out if you make a mistake, and that's good. But when you're reading it from the Chumash, it will say Kriying Siv. You'll see both of them over here in this, at least in the Tehillim that I have. Pasuk Yud Beis does not give you the Kriying Siv in the Tehillim that the Tehillim that I was using with Rashi and Radak, the Tehillim that the Mikrais Gedolos Tehillim that I was using. So it brings up the Kriying Siv. So it's read as Ezkar. It's written as Azkir with a Yud instead of a Vav. And the Radak even mentions it, that it's both ideas. It's Azkir, so that I should remind others, and Ezkar, so that I should remember. When I remember, I find solace, right? And Azkir, I should also remind other people. What should I remind them? Malika, the actions of Hashem, etc., etc., which we're going to get through over here. Mamlois brings up over here in Pasuk Yud Beis, and this is really a process from verse 12 all the way till the end, verse 21. And Mamlois starts over here that when a person is deep in their troubles, we mentioned this a little bit in the introduction, when a person is in their tzara, when they're going through a hard time in galus, in exile, what should they think about? They should think about what you're going to do, what Hashem is going to do for the final redemption, for the final geula, and think about the way Hashem took the Jewish people out of Mitzrayim, out of Egypt, which we're going to go through over the next couple of psukim, next couple of verses. Meditate about that time that Hashem took the Yidden out of Mitzrayim, out of Egypt. Why? Because our sages say that that when Hashem will take them out of Egypt, when Hashem will take the Jewish people out of the current exile, it will be similar. I'll show miracles similar to the way Hashem took the Yidden out of Mitzrayim back in the day. It's an interesting Tzemach Tzedek that I'm going to bring in at the end that adds to this, but we'll get to it. But the concept is that when a person, as we said in Pasuk Gimel, the third pasuk, that it's talking about again tzara, a person going through a hard time. We're in galus, in exile, right? So a person should think, starting with pasuk 12, ezkar, I should remember. I'm going to remember the actions of Hashem, and all the wonders, the miracles that Hashem has done in the past, which Hashem will do in the future with the coming of Mashiach. Pasuk Yud Gimel, pasuk 13, Gisi, and meditate on what you've done in the past, as Rashi explains, Pasuk Yud Gimel. The Metzudah says that through this meditation, it's Meshiv Nafshi. The beginning, there was 2 times in the pasuk in this chapter in the beginning that talked about a person's nefesh, their ruach, their spirit is fallen, it's down, right? So through this meditation, it will Meshiv Nafshi, it will return my soul, which means like to revive my nefesh, my soul. And the Sforno says that all the actions, and other commentaries as well, all the actions that he's referring to, I'll meditate about all your ways, all your works, all the things that you've done, is referring to Mitzrayim and the follow-up in the desert after the Yidden went out of Mitzrayim, out of Egypt. Pasuk Yudalid, Pasuk 14. Hashem, your ways, Rashi says, your ways that you render judgment against the Rishayim, against the evildoers, are Elikim Bakodesh Darkecha. It is a way of sanctity, and and Hashem does it in order to sanctify His name. Mamloy says that it's referring to Har Sinai, which testifies that there is Mikil Gadol Kelikim, that was a time that everybody realized that there is no one like Hashem at the time of the giving of the 10 Commandments at Mount Sinai. Pasuk Tesvav, Pasuk 15. Those who saw in the email, when this was the chapter for the Rebbe's birthday, so they made a niggin on Pasuk 15 and 16. Ata Akel Yisefela, the probably the most upbeat of the upbeat verses out of the whole chapter. Probably why they chose these ones. So first of all, Hashem, you make wonders, you make miracles, and you were made known. Your strength was made known to the nations. So the Imam Leah says that through Har Sinai, you made sure that all the nations knew your strength. Right? Through Har Sinai, all the nations knew your strength. So the Rebbe says over here in Pasuk Tesvav, what are we asking over here? What are we asking? These chapters, we're asking something of Hashem. So what are we asking with this pasuk? That you are Hashem that makes wonders. So what? What do we want to gain from that? What are we looking for? What are we asking for? So the Rebbe explains this pasuk that since you've done wonders in the past, like we talked about earlier, since you have done wonders in the past and that made Hashem known throughout the world, so we're asking that the final goal should come, and also your name should be known throughout the whole world. As we mentioned before, that our sages say that just like when Hashem took the Yidden out of Mitzrayim, there were miracles in the flies, there were wonders and miracles. So too, when Mashiach comes, there will also be wonders and miracles. It's interesting that Rebbe brings down afterwards that Tzemach Tzedek. Tzemach Tzedek was the third Chabad Rebbe, and the Tzemach Tzedek says that when it says you're going to do wonders. So if Hashem split the sea, right? So for someone who witnessed the splitting of the sea, then when the Jewish people left Egypt, is it a big deal that it happens again? Meaning, if you witness a miracle, right, and then you see it again, yeah, it's still awesome, it's still great, but is it really the same miracle, the same level of miracle that Hashem did for the Jewish people that left Egypt? So the Tzemach Tzedek says that the miracles that will happen when Mashiach comes are going to be miracles compared to the miracle of the time of going out of Mitzrayim. So it's going to be such a level of miracle that's going to be way beyond when they went out of Egypt, meaning it's going to, compared to what happened when they went out of Egypt, this is going to be a pella, this is going to be a wonder, this is going to be a miracle. And that's when Hidaita B'Mezecha continues the pasuk, the end of pasuk 15, that's when you're going to be known through by all the nations. Everybody will recognize Hashem. Pasuk Tezayin, pasuk 16. You redeemed B'Zrei Amecha, so you redeemed B'Zrei Amecha and B'nei Yaakov Yosef. So this is some of the commentaries come up. Why mention Yaakov and Yosef? Maybe Mela to mention Yaakov, that we understand, makes sense. Where does Yosef come in over here? So I was looking a little at different commentaries. I have two, but if anybody has anything to share, it's a Geshmak Indian. So Yaakov makes sense, right? So what's Yosef? So Mitzudas comes and says that Yaakov is the father of the Jewish people, right? It's part of the forefathers, but all the 12 tribes comes from Yaakov. He's the one that all his children followed in his pathways, right? So Yaakov, the father of the Jewish people. Okay, good. Why Yosef? So Yosef sustained them. Yaakov fathered them. Yosef sustained them. When they came down to Egypt, Yosef sustained them. And that's the mitzvah that says. And the Mamleh says that here we're talking about specifically, we're going to get into it. The next pasuk, we're going to talk about the splitting of the sea. And the splitting of the sea, according to some opinions, or at least one of the reasons that the sea split is because it saw Hayam Ra Vayanis, right? There was the sea saw, and it split. What about Ra? Saw Yosef's coffin, right? As we know, the Egyptians didn't let them take Yosef's coffin out, and they embalmed Yosef, etc. And then when they heard they didn't want to put him in, and that's where that plate that said Alei Shar came, and they threw it into the Nile, and that's what's brought out the coffin. They took the coffin out, right? So now Yosef's coffin is what helped get the sea split. So therefore, Bnei Yaakov Yosef. That's why the pasuk mentions Yosef over here, and then the next psukim go into the idea of the splitting a sea. 17 for sure. Rocha Mayim Elikim, Rocha Mayim Yechilu. Right, when the water sees Rocha Mayim, Hashem wants it to split. It's going to split. That's it. That's what's going to happen. So that's what pasuk 17 is talking about, the splitting of the sea. Yud Ches Chai. The 18th pasuk. Zer mumayim avis nasnu kel nasnu shchakim, that the Mitzvah says that there was the splitting of the sea. The Jewish people went, because we're talking about the unique miracles that are happening to the Jewish people, right? So not only was there splitting of the sea, but at the same time there also was a terrible rain. Right? I see in the chat that everybody's talking about the rain today. So there was rain. There was, while they were going through the sea, there was also rain, and the Mitzvah says that it was there, that the clouds that rained, it was there to confuse, to scare the Egyptians, and the sound of the thunder and the sight of the lightning, that's what it's referring to at the end of the pasuk. The sound of the thunder, and also according to the Mitzvah it's talking about, it's referring to lightning. Chatzotzecha is referring to lightning. Pasuk Yotes, pasuk 19. This is a continuation of the process of the noise and the thunder and the lightning and the rain and the splitting of the sea. So there's the loud noise called Ramcha, the sound and the thunder and the rolling wind that also comes together with the thunder, that was heard around the world, and everybody trembled. Everybody trembled. Yeah, and the Mitzvah mentions specifically that Heiru Brakim Tevel, that it was something very unique, that when the lightning happened there, it was lightning that was seen around the world, that literally lit up everywhere around the world. Pasuk Chav, pasuk 20, Bayom Darkecha V'Shvilcha B'Mayim Rabim. So this is describing the many openings that have happened for the Yidden to go through the Red Sea, right? That when they went through, so there's openings per tribe, etc. So there's many different openings. So this is what it's describing, that Hashem created those pathways. But then what happened as the Jewish people went through? It collapsed, closed. That's the Ikvesechel Nedo, meaning that the footsteps are not known. What does it mean the footsteps are known? They can't. There's no trail, because the water covered over on the pathways that they have gone through, and the Egyptians ended up getting killed over there, but they also couldn't follow any path because there was no. And the final pasuk, Nachisa Katzain Amecha, we're saying that you led your people like a flock. So first of all, there's very important message over here about the leadership. When it comes to the Jewish people, the leadership was always, when Hashem was looking for a proper leader, who was he looking for? For a shepherd. Moshe Rabbeinu was a shepherd. David HaMelech was a shepherd. All the good, true leaders of the Jewish people were shepherds. Why? And when Hashem would look for a person that cared for his sheep, cared for his animals. Now that's someone that's going to care for every single one. That's the concept, one of the concepts about the shepherd. Now, how does this how does this end off the pasuk? So how does this end off the chapter? So if Hashem did all of this for the Yidden, of course, if we meditate on this idea that Hashem did all of this for the Yidden, so of course Hashem could take us out of any tzara that we'll ever be in. And with that, we finish this chapter. But I just wanted to bring up there's a few interesting things, especially a fascinating medrash over here. The medrash, that's Philip. That's why I called you today. I don't have a copy of the medrash. I saw someone alluding to the medrash, and I was looking for the original. What's it called? But I think I found it. I have to retype it over here. So medrash says, pasuk 21, the final pasuk, it says Nochisa katzayin. So Nochisa literally translates that you led like sheep. You led our nation like sheep, like properly. Like our nation was led properly. But in whose hands? In Moshe Rabbeinu's hands, in Aaron's hands, right? So that's one thing. So the Medrash says, what's Nochisa? Medrash says, so this is a drush, right? This is not pshat. Pshat we already explained. The drush of it is Nochisa. How does Moshe Rabbeinu, how does Aaron a Kohen, how do they lead the Jewish people? What did they do to lead the Jewish people? Nochisa, they did it with Nochisa. What's Nochisa? So they say Nochisa is a Rosh Tevis. That Nun, Ches, Yud, and Sof, each letter represents something. And there's a machlekes in the Medrash. The Medrash has a machlekes. Rabbi Lezer says that Nun stands for Nisim, miracles, Nisim Asisa Imayim, that you've done miracles with them, and that's the leadership of Moshe and Aaron. The Ches stands for Chaim Nasatalam, you've given them life. Right? Yud stands for Yam Karatalam, that you split the sea for them, and Taf is Torah Nasatalam, you've given them the Torah. So what's the leadership of Moshe and Aaron? The leadership of Moshe and Aaron is the miracles that they've done, the life that they've given, the sea that they split, and the Torah that they've given. That is the opinion of Rebbe Eliezer. The Medrash continues and says, Rabbi Shuda says, no, it's a different Rosh Tevis. What's Rosh Tevis? Nun, Niflois, not Nisim, Niflois. Wonders, not miracles. Same concept. Miracles, Asisa Lahem. You've done for them miracles. Ches, Cheres Nasatlam. You gave them freedom. Ches for Cheres. Yud, Yemincha, Pesheisam. That you helped them out with the right hand. You were there with the right hand. And Tov, Tolui Roish, Nasatalam, that you gave them a head to follow. Okay, that is the opinion of Rabbi Lezer and Rabbi Yeshua. Then the Medrash continues, it says, but Rabbi Seinu Aimrim, Rabbi Seinu, our masters, our teachers, they say that Nun, what did he give them? Neviim Ematolahem, you've given them prophets. Ches, Chasidim Ematolahem, you gave them righteous, not righteous, pious, chassidim, pious, you've given Yesharim, Yud for Yesharim, straightforward, and Tav, Tmimim, whole people, Tmimim, Tamim, wholesome, fully well-rounded, so to speak, like, with everything, all the things that they need. And this is the Medrash that explains Nachisa, what's the leadership of Moshe and Aaron. You did it with Nun, Ches, Yud, and Saf. But we have to talk about what's this idea of Moshe and Aaron. Why mention Moshe and Aaron? Philip, remember Rashi, where Rashi says, when he mentions one time Moshe and then Aaron, and another time he mentions Aaron and then Moshe. What does Rashi say?
It's to let us know that they're equal.
Oh, Rashi comes and tells us that sometimes you say Aaron before Moshe, and sometimes you say Moshe before Aaron. Why? Because they're both equal. Kulam Shavim, if I remember it correctly, that was it. That they're both equal. Moshe is not greater than Aaron, Aaron is not greater than Moshe, and therefore they're interchangeable of who goes first in the Torah when we mention Moshe and Aaron. Here we mention Moshe and Aaron, right? And we mention Moshe and Aaron as the leaders of the Jewish people. Why do we need to mention both Moshe and Aaron? Right? What's the difference? Obviously, each one brings something else to the table. It's impossible that they're both bringing the same thing to the table. They're two different people. They bring the two different things to the table. So in Chassidic philosophy, they talk about it like this: that Moshe represents bringing the Shekhinah, bringing the divine presence down here into this world. Aaron represents, think about the characters. Aaron represents elevating the Jewish people. It's two different types of concepts, right? Moshe Rabbeinu goes onto Mahar Sinai, goes onto the mountain, and brings down the Torah to us, the Ten Commandments. The Torah brings down spirituality, something that's mystical, spiritual, technically we have no concept, no connection to. Moshe brings it down. We have a connection to. That's Moshe Rabbeinu. Aaron, on the other hand, he elevates people to try to make them more spiritual, to make them more. Aaron was all about love. So in this case, it would be Avas Hashem, love of Hashem, connecting Hashem, Avas Hashem, love towards Hashem. So how is that represented in our Avodah, in our divine service? If you want to think about it, Aaron is the guy that wants you to daven better, right? What's davening? Davening is when I leave for a moment my physical reality, and I have a moment that I elevate myself, or someone helps me get elevated, and I become closer to Hashem. 10 minutes after davening, I'm back to my office, I'm back to my work, I'm a regular person, I'm back into the regular grind, right? So I don't stay there. But there is that, Aaron represents the idea of tefillah of davening, of elevating through davening. Moshe Rabbeinu, what does it represent? Obviously, Torah study that happens down here in this world. What are we doing? We're drawing down spiritual things, and we're bringing it down here into this world. That's Moshe Rabbeinu. Also, actionable mitzvahs. When we do a mitzvah here in this world, we take something physical and we make a bracha on it. We elevate it, right? So we're bringing spirituality and putting it into a can, right? That's also comes from Moshe. And what's the lesson over here? That they led your nation. Biyad Moshe Aaron. We need Sai Moshe. We need Sai Aaron. We need on the one hand that we should draw up and we should want to become more spiritual, but on the other hand, we need to make this world also more spiritual. We need a combination of both, and only when we have a combination of both will we merit to have Mashiach. And that's what we need. We need those two things in order to bring Mashiach down here into the physical, and that is an idea here in this capital.
Right.